Today, we're going to unpack a really complex border dispute that's happening high up in the Himalayas. Now, this is all based on an analysis by Munsing Dhami, and we're going to dig into how a conflict that's literally centuries old is flaring up right now. So let's get into it.
It really all boils down to this one kind of crazy question. How is it possible that a piece of paper signed way back in 1816 is causing major diplomatic headaches between India and Nepal today? Well, the whole answer is hidden in a remote but very strategic piece of land. And here they are. These three names, Kalapani, Lipalik, and Limpiadhora, are right at the epicenter of this whole thing. You're going to want to remember them because they're key to understanding everything else. So yeah, the roots of this whole disagreement go way back. But it's some very recent events that have suddenly thrown this dispute right back into the international spotlight. Here's how it all kicked off again. First, India went and inaugurated a new, very strategic road that runs right through the area. That was a big deal. So what did Nepal do? They responded by publishing a brand new political map, officially laying claim to those territories. India's comeback, of course, is that this land has been on their maps and under their control for something like 70 years. So you've got a classic standoff. Okay, to really get what's going on, we have to jump in the time machine. Because the entire modern conflict, all of it, stems from how each country reads this one, single, incredibly important document. And this is it, the Treaty of Seguli. Signed in 1816, it ended a war and it set a new boundary. It says pretty clearly that the Kali River will be the western border of Nepal. Sounds simple, right? What could possibly go wrong? Well, a lot, it turns out. And this is the absolute heart of the problem. You see, both sides agree, yep, the border is the Kali River. But they have a completely different idea of which river is the actual Kali River. Nepal says it's the main river, the one that starts up at a place called Limpiadhora. But India says, nope, it's this other, smaller stream that starts near Kalapani. This one geographical disagreement is what the entire fight is about. And just to give you a sense of scale, we're not talking about a tiny little sliver of land here. This disagreement over where a river starts puts about 400 square kilometers of territory in limbo. You can actually see how this border has sort of moved on paper over the years. Right after the treaty in 1816, early British maps actually seem to back up Nepal's claim, showing the border starting at Limpiadhora. But then, after the 1850s, something changes. The border on British maps starts creeping eastward. Now, fast forward to 1962. Indian troops move into the area during the war with China, and they set up outposts. Later on, Nepal managed to get most of those posts removed, but the one in this critical area, it just shifted over to Kalapani and stayed. Okay, so that's all the history, the treaties, the maps. But what does the situation look like right now, today, for the people in that actual territory? What are the facts on the ground? Well, the reality on the ground is just a stark contrast. On one side, you have India with a heavy military presence, a lot of infrastructure, and very active control. And on the other side, Nepal's presence is, well, it's pretty sparse, and a lot of the time it's only seasonal. Let's dig into India's position a bit more. They've been building that road since 2008, seeing it as a key trade link to China. The area is heavily patrolled by their border forces. And get this, helicopter patrols fly over 8 to 10 times a day for surveillance and transport. This shows a serious, long-term strategic investment. Now flip that and look at it from the Nepali side. The challenges are huge. For 6 months of the year, the whole region is buried in snow, so civilians have to leave. Even the one police post they have there is only staffed for half the year. It's a 5-day walk from the nearest Nepali town, and here's the kicker. To even get there, people often have to use the roads on the Indian side. It's a logistical nightmare. So, you've got all this geopolitics, these maps, all this military hardware, but it's really easy to forget that there are actual people who call this place home. What's their reality like? The author of our source material, Munsing Dhami, asks this really powerful question. I mean, think about it. When your entire daily life depends on one country, but your identity is technically claimed by another, where does your loyalty actually lie? For the people who live here, this is not some abstract political debate. Their lives are completely dependent on India. We're talking about everything from schools for their kids, to healthcare, to jobs. Many of them even have Indian ration cards just to get basic supplies. Their day-to-day survival is tied to the facts on the ground, not the lines on competing maps. And all of this brings us to the final, really critical part of this analysis. What's the real motivation behind all the political noise, especially coming from the Nepali side? The author, Dami, makes a really sharp critique here. He basically suggests that for a lot of politicians, this border dispute isn't really about sovereignty anymore. It's become a useful tool to stir up nationalist feelings and, win some cheap popularity. And you can really see his point when you contrast the big talk with the reality. You hear these grand speeches about national pride and protecting every inch of land. But then you look at the national budget and there's no real money set aside to develop the area. There's no big government plan to build the schools or hospitals that would actually connect these people to the Nepali state. And as the author points out, the issue seems to get really loud, almost like clockwork, right around election time. And so that leaves us with the author's final lingering question. What are we really looking at here? Is this a genuine fight for national sovereignty, or is it a political tool that gets dusted off when it's time to win votes? It's a dispute about history and geography for sure, but it's also about the people caught right in the middle. And what the true endgame is, well, that's still the unanswered question.